say on behalf of dentalinsights.io, thank you again for being here. We all know how life, can take over sometimes. And the dental field is one of those that cannot work remotely. So we understand the effort that it takes for you to be here. So thank you all. Let me also thank Crown ID for sponsoring dentalinsights.io and all the contents curated here for you. Crown ID is a digital prescription tool for lab work, but also a communication channel between labs and dental offices while the work is underway. So you can go ahead and visit Crown ID at crownid.com to find out more information. We have today here a couple of guests that have been in the industry for more years than I've been alive. So let me go ahead and introduce your guests today. We have Dr. Caroline Benalal, who is a French dental graduate from Nice University. She was trained at the Misch Implant Institute in advanced grafting and became one of Dr. Misch's most fervent followers, co-founding with him the European Misch Implant Institute in Madrid, Spain. She has held a private practice there for over 30 years and then kind of traveled the world. Went over to Tanzania for 5 years, where she also founded a nonprofit called One World, One Smile. She is now retired from private practice and aims at sharing her knowledge and experience with us all. She currently lives in Bali, which don't we all wish we lived in Bali, where she pursues intense activities within the dental world, but also a deep spiritual journey, which I'm sure we'll find a little bit more about today. But during COVID, she actually was able to write 2 dental books for patients, one of them being called Show Me Your Teeth, and the other one, Stairway to Dental Implants. So please help me in welcoming today, Caroline.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that nice introduction. Thanks to all for being here. I know how hard it can be to connect yourselves to an event like this, no matter how interesting it seems. And it is going to be interesting. Thanks to Dental Insights.io for hosting us and Crown ID for the sponsorship. Small parenthesis, I sincerely believe that Crown ID is the right tool to avoid hiccups in the communication flow with labs. And oh my God, do I know about those hiccups. As for Dental Insights, I will add that we are going to be presenting to you every third Wednesday of the month, panel discussions and interviews on the most interesting topics yet to be discussed in the dental. It's not about surgical techniques, composites, preventative dentistry. It will be about logistics, hurdles, dental psychology, which is very important. And I'm not talking about patient psychology. I'm talking about our psychology as dentists, because we have issues. That's just between us. And we will even have talks on meditation to bring in the Bali vibe. So anyway, thanks to all for being here, and thank you, Alex, for daring to sit between both of us.
Thank you, Carolina. Let me go ahead and introduce our second guest today, Dr. Rick Klein. He's been a dentist on Long Island for over 40 years, and trust me, you'll be able to hear that accent as soon as he opens his mouth. He graduated from NYU College of Dentistry in 1980 and is also a Misch Fellow, an ICOI, as well as an ASO diplomate. His professional duties changed suddenly when his health required an immediate transition from practitioner to administrator, and he was actually successfully able to make that transition and transition the practice to his current form, reinventing it as a multi-specialty group practice with 3 GPs and 4 specialists. While maintaining the practice, he continued a successful entrepreneurship journey, which also allowed him to confirm that without the human wealth of extraordinary people, it is unlikely to achieve a balance in life. So welcome, Dr. Klein.
Thank you very much for that intro. And thank you to everyone for inviting me this evening to be the one to kick off panelists. I hope I can share some of my personal experiences, and with any luck, everyone takes something away that's positive from this evening. So thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you to both. Crown ID is also going to be sponsoring a 1-hour lunch and learn sessions with Dr. Benalal, during which she'll be going through logistical topics, treatment plan acceptance, and any other issues that your team might have. So we will get you lunch from your favorite place. And while you eat, she'll be going over any topic you've chosen for her to cover. So Crown ID will also be giving a 4-month extended trial period to 3 lucky winners tonight. For that, we will need you to write down your email in the chat, since the chat feature will be deactivated in a couple of minutes to be reactivated again at the end of the talk. So please go ahead and drop your information in the chat for us to be able to include you in that. The last announcement that I wanted to make before moving on to a pretty fun and intriguing discussion that we have planned for you all this evening is about question and answer. So Q&A, we do invite you to send your questions by hitting the Q&A icon below so that we can choose when is the best time to ask our guests. If you have a specific question that you would like directed at either Carolina or Rick, please go ahead and mention who you would like that question to be answered by. So let's go ahead and get on with it here. You know, they are both practitioners, have been practitioners for over 35 years. They know each other. So this is about to get a little bit heated, but hopefully it'll be a friendly one. And throughout this presentation, we will have a series of polls asking questions to you all, the attendees, and we'll be able to share those results. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and send the first poll here, which will come up on your screen. So please go ahead and take a couple of seconds to answer this question. But for those of you who are practicing dentists, where do you position yourself? In a high volume practice, in a low volume, high fee, or are you still trying to decide which way to go? So let's go ahead and take a look at those results for the poll. So it looks like 100% of you are still trying to decide which way to go. That is more than fine. I hope that today's discussion might help you in that decision. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. To start off, we'll start off with you, Carolina. To start, can you describe the model that you've been practicing for more than 35 years? You clearly know, both of you know your models in and out. So please go ahead and just describe to our attendees what kind of model you have.
Well, it's basically high fee, low volume that I've always aimed at developing. It was my dream from university. It could be related to the education I had also, coming from a kind of, maybe the word might sound a bit rigid, but elitist family. I considered I had to serve that type of layer in society, that 1%. So that was basically my model.
Okay, perfect. And so where do you find patients for the model that you had?
Well, as egocentric as it may sound, I focused on me. I was in a city that was a capital. It was Madrid. There are a lot of dentists out there. When I got there, I had very little experience, and competition could have been and was criminal. So I said to myself, what can I offer that others can't, aside from dentistry, because we're all dentists? So what can I offer? What was my unique value proposition? And that's what I tried to define, my unique value proposition. I was not experienced. I had worked for someone in a dental office for 4 years. What did I have that others might not have? And I went into languages. I spoke 3 languages fluently, communities, international schools, foreign corporations, and I tried to really look for niches within the specifications that I had as a practitioner. I did some very personalized direct B2C and B2B marketing. using the phone book at that point and gluing stamps on envelopes. And if I was lucky, they had an adhesive strip. Otherwise, I would have to close the envelopes, with my tongue. But it is, I mean, that's where it was 1991. So my advice today would be, if you aim at being a solo practitioner or in a small select group practice, find a niche that you can relate to. If you're trying to compete with other dentists based on price, it's going to be absolutely ridiculous. You have to find what is your unique value proposition. Patients trust the dentist. So you have to be the one putting yourself out there, not dentistry, because a patient doesn't know if you're good or bad. Find the uniqueness in you, and that's a Bali sentence.
Thank you for that. So you didn't.
I'm sorry, I would also add to that I had to define what patients I wanted. Who did I want as a patient? What profile did I want? Define the persona. And based on that persona, adapt my offer. And that's super important. So my value proposition and what was the persona that I was looking for. Sorry.
Thank you for that. So you did mention, trust. You're obviously talking about niche communities where, you're maybe targeting the 1%, the 2%ers. How do you go ahead and make them trust you so that, they keep coming to you?
It's about the journey. It's not about dentistry. Once again, a patient doesn't know if you're good or bad. The only thing that I focused on when I started in dentistry was don't hurt them. Don't hurt them. Make sure you're soft. Make sure you have feather-like hands. I focused on that because I knew they could not tell if I was good or bad. They could not tell how long my crowns were going to last or my fillings were going to last. So I had to focus on all the rest. And that was about the journey, and being soft with patients physically with your hands is part of the journey, the environment, the office, everything. And when everything is perfect, they cannot imagine for a second that you're not a good dentist.
And one last question here, again, you're not going to the masses, you're going for that 1-2% at the top. There aren't that many people up there. So how long does it take you to build a patient base that you can live on for 35 years that you practiced?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the beginning, I started off with very low fee because I was new. Nobody knew me. I was in Madrid. I had just arrived from France. So of course, I started with a very low fee, but always excellent quality. I was giving excellent quality. I was going to all the shops in my neighborhood. I was sending mails, and they say that you need 1,500 patients in your database to live off them. Just if the referral process works as it should, statistically speaking, it didn't take me long. I mean, I'm not saying to reach those 1,500 patients, but within 1 month, I was covering the expenses of my office. So you have to go out there. Things haven't changed. 1991 or 2021, you create a startup today, you have to go out there. You have to validate your product and you have to go and get your customers. This is the same, unless you want to be insurance dependent and union dependent, in which case they will come to you. But then the persona is totally different and the journey is not comparable.
Thank you for your answer, Carolina. Definitely, one business model and one practice model that we have with us here today is kind of that more luxury one, which is the one that you described. We're going to go ahead and take the same question here to Rick. So, can you go ahead and describe your model?
Well, I've had an entirely different journey. I was never a solo practitioner. When I came out of school, I went to work with a very fine businessman dentist, learned a tremendous amount about the management of a practice and how to grow it, who had large relationships into, as Carolina said, labor unions and relationships, and brought mass people into that practice. Ultimately, I ended up moving in a little bit different direction, where I went to have one of the multiple practices we own to be imparted with, my personality. So I've always practiced with other professionals. I always had the one team, one goal approach, but being with other professionals always allowed me to learn from others, not just their own personal experiences. Also, everyone has their own personal strengths and weaknesses. likes and dislikes. Therefore, a team works better for my personality. So I've always worked within a team. So my practice currently, and it's got two stages to it, because initially my practice was focused around my implant training, advanced reconstruction, even though we were working on insurance patients. So I was always doing the best dentistry we can, provide. And when I had the opportunity to find that one day I turned, I couldn't move my right hand, I had to then evolve into something else. So what I ended up with is operating a multi-specialty GP practice, all right, totally unaffiliated with any DSO organization. We have a collective of doctors, hygienists, clinical staff, managers, administrative staff. They're all guarded by a brand motto. So I put different business practices and knowledge into work to be able to try to create this brand. We're one team, one goal. And internally, it's to achieve predictable results. Externally, it's ultimate dental care, because we are providing care for our level, all right? We are providing all the options, whether it's advanced implant dentistry, sinus grafts, advanced reconstruction. We're doing all those things in the office, just slightly modified. So one team, one goal to achieve predictable results. We have to meet or exceed patient expectations every single time. All right, to accomplish the goals, we partner with our patients when determining treatment options, path to get there. We set achievable goals. All right, communication is a critical part of our puzzle. All right, we work in a larger office, so we require more of everything: supplies, equipment, staff, and obviously patients. It gets way more complicated with more people and more personalities. Our participation with insurance and PPOs is a necessary part to ensure that we have a steady flow of available patients for the staff. We work in a collaborative environment. So our GPs are talking face-to-face with the specialists in the office, all right? And that's done so they can orchestrate the visit and the experience that the patients expect and desire, all right? All of this offers a patient convenience and basically more affordable care, because we're space sharing at a certain level. As an own and non-practitioner, my role is business support, which is different than when it was before as being a surgeon. So for business support for the clinical team, I don't treat patients. I provide an environment for the team to focus on what matters, and that's really the patients. That's our secret sauce.
Thank you. So definitely a very different model to the one Carolina described. But how did you go about, getting that volume? Clearly, you're not touching the 1-2%ers. You're going more for the masses. So how did you get that volume?
We're going for the marketplace we're in. We started out, like I said, my original senior partner had relationships. We had multiple offices, and that was what really gave me my start. What would change is that we look at every individual patient as a referral source, no different than a boutique practice. But we also look at it to say a patient that's not treated properly is not complaining to 1 or 2 or 10 people. They have the voice that's being heard by 50, 100, sometimes 1,000 people. So everything is patient-centered in the office. So we're able to really work at developing relationships having to do with large corporations, other labor unions, and any other affiliated groups. But we still build our practice a good old-fashioned way, one patient at a time, one patient time, next one time, next one time, next one. There's really no magic to building these larger practices. Everyone's got to be on the same page. That's the key.
And then one last question for you here, Rick. How do you deal with the volume, right? You need facilities, you need the staff, just walk through us walk us through that a little bit.
Well, number one, you need great people. Everything starts with people, and you have to motivate them. You have to treat and compensate people properly. So that's your staff. You need a larger facility, absolutely. So there's a different set of economic principles you have to follow. So you have to really look at dental care at that level as the business of dentistry. That's the difference, that a lot of solo practitioners or smaller practitioners don't really have all those systems in place. So the only way it works is by organization, SOPs, and everybody have a unified front.
Perfect. Thank you both for that. So extremely interesting topic, as you know, you've all heard two very different models in dentistry and in a practice. So we're going to go ahead and move on here to our second poll that we'll be throwing up on the screens here. So take a couple of seconds to be able to answer that. But you know, no matter what your business model is, in a nutshell, which model do you believe is more sustainable? The high volume practice average fee, so what Rick has been talking about, or that more deluxe dentistry that is aimed more that, you know, 1-2%, that Gucci, that Louis Vuitton. Go ahead and take a couple of seconds to answer this poll for us. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the results here. Okay, so it looks about 33% of people believe that the high volume practice average fee is more sustainable, and 67% of people believe that deluxe dentistry is more sustainable. So extremely interesting, very interesting answers, and we'll ask you the same question at the end to see if you still think the same. But definitely interesting to me, and I'm sure to you, Carolina and Rick, as well. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our second question here. And Rick, we'll start off with you here. So is it nobler to serve each person completely than to labor diligently for the masses? After all, you know, the masses are usually those who cannot afford the first option. And if you didn't exist, Rick, people would not be treated, right? So your model essentially has to exist, but it cannot be a nonprofit either. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, really, it's a question of healthcare. People need access to dental care. You have professional obligation for the best options to all your patients. So we are offering the full option that you would get in any other office. So there's very little difference in treatment presentation. The financial health of the patient will ultimately determine the path. Not every patient can afford everything you believe to be best, but every patient deserves to be able to make that decision. We know that we treat one patient at a time, not the masses. So they might be coming in from some type of affiliation, but everyone is treated in a very unique and personalized manner. So here's my reality. The majority of dental practitioners are working on the others. 68% of patients have some form of dental benefits as of the poll taken in 2019. Concept of boutique practice can be extremely rewarding, but it doesn't come without a distinct set of complications. And that has to do with the volume and consistent volume. There'll always be an exclusive model for everything from healthcare to country club. But reality and statistics prove there are way more, we'll call them consumers, patients, individuals that fit into a well-run business, whether it's a solo practitioner, small group, large group, or a branded DSO office. The size of your office and the distinction of your role will determine what works for you. So for me, I can work in a larger environment. I'm not the hands anymore. I have other people that are working and being very well compensated for their professional help within the practice. They're helping people. And obviously, I keep going back to people. This is not done a lot. It's all about people. It's a question of really the business model. All right, when you're dealing with volume, having physical capacity, example being a larger office, efficient, well-trained doctors, great equipment, larger hygiene program, well-trained admin, management. All of this is necessary to provide dental care at scale. This all needs to come together for a smooth operation. And that's critical. So it's all about people and then the financial, your expectations as a doctor, what you think you should be paid. It's a very different expectation when you're working with your two hands, all right? You have to realize that what's a reasonable return for your expertise in care. If you're the only one providing the care, it's a very different expectation. So you might need a higher fee to be able to supplement the difference of patients. When you have more people working, all right, you don't have to get the higher fee every single time. You still have to have quality of care. You still have to have relationships. All those other things still occur. So there's really no secret sauce to this. It's all about taking care of everyone that walks into your office appropriately. I don't consider the masses versus the boutique. I think it's a little bit too elitist. And I think there's a place for it. I think there's a definite place in society to have it. But the reality is that I would rather have my patients coming in and the numbers are coming in and providing quality care rather than running after the next patient. It's an easier model to follow, in my opinion.
Thank you for that. And we'll just switch it straight over to you, Carolina. Is your model necessary?
Well, I mean, put that way, the answer is no.
No, it's yes.
No. Let me just go into that. I was like, I was overwhelmed by the way the question was asked. But yes, I mean, it is not necessary in the sense that is a Mercedes necessary. So if you look at Mercedes and Toyota Corolla, which one would be necessary? Considering that the car is a necessary item for the family, I would say the Toyota Corolla should exist no matter what, and the Mercedes can come later. So if the Toyota exists and whoever needs to drive a car, whether they are in the 1% or not, can drive a car. If only the Mercedes exists, the 90% or whoever is in the lower layers cannot have a car. So if you want to make dentistry accessible to all, of course, either there is a social system within the country that allows people to go there, or an insurance system that allows people that are insured to go there, or it's not possible. It's healthcare. In the other hand, the model, I mean, I loved the model I had. I succeeded at it beyond anything I could have imagined. But if one of the two had to be eradicated, I mean, just like that, even more with the person I became today, I would say it would have to be my model. I mean, to call it, it's not my model, but it was, that model would have to be eradicated for the well-being of the majority, because you want to serve the majority. But if you take all of Rick's patients and they win Lotto tomorrow, and you say to them, now, which practice do you want to go to? I'm sorry, 90% will go to deluxe dentistry. Why? Because it's a dream. Why? Because it's a different journey. No matter, and I'm not judging how good the journey is. I know you, I know how you work, I know you do good work, but it's a different journey because you have to focus on productivity. One of the things I did not do, which was maybe a flaw, we will talk about it later, maybe, is that I did not focus on productivity. I only focused on the journey. Of course, I wasn't the spiritual person that I'm now, so I was also focusing on my journey. So not only the patient's journey, my journey was a dream, just like their journey was a dream. And there is not 1 year. I left private dentistry 6 years ago. There is not 1 year that goes by without at least 3-4 emails from patients saying, we never found a practice like yours. They're not saying a dentist like you. They're saying a practice like yours. It's about the whole journey. But the car that is more necessary is the Toyota Corolla, just like you don't need Louis Vuitton or Chanel, and that's why you don't have it in Africa, I mean, because the other one is necessary, that's why I went to Africa and I created a nonprofit. Maybe it was my way of healing a little bit the guilt side of having been serving the 1%, or it was my way of really giving back at opposite ends of the spectrum, and I enjoyed it immensely. Yeah. So it's not necessary. But it's beautiful to have.
So thank you both for your answers. So right now we're talking Mercedes versus Toyota Corolla, right? And the golden triangle states that you have, that triangle, you have fast, cheap, and good, and you can only pick two. So you got your Toyota Corolla, which is, cheap and good. And then you've got your Mercedes, which is fast and good, but definitely not cheap, right? So Rick, would you say pick three then?
Well, I hate the word cheap. I believe in context should be affordable, efficient, and clinical standards is set by our profession. Good's really nothing more than a perception in this context. It's about SOPs, great professionals, people that respect themselves and respect their patients. And then it comes down to repetition. We provide more dental care by procedure, maybe not by feet per hour, but our docs are efficient, they're gentle, they provide a quality, restoration to the patients. Our labs are efficient. All right, so therefore we have less repeat visits. So I do believe all three can exist. It's a matter of having people that are on point, that they're not putting the economics of what goes in their pocket before the ethics of what the responsibilities of the profession is.
Okay, so if you can find me a fast, cheap, and good car, let me know. I'm very interested. But you mentioned that you have 3 GPs, 4 specialists. If they're good at what they do, they can't have obviously lower salaries. And since they get paid a percentage, you need to make that up by working faster and seeing more patients. So how do you keep that profitable?
Well, first of all the doctors are compensated of what industry standards are. For us, it's a matter of capacity in the office. So if I have, for example, we have 9 rooms. If I have 9 rooms constantly filled with patients with an operator in each room, and we're not breaking that patient experience by pulling people away to jump into a different place, we're able to produce X amount per hour, per chair, and the doctors are making a reasonable return for their efforts. They all work extremely hard and diligently. They're all top-level professionals, and you can't get people that have egos. All right, when you have a massive ego, it's very difficult to work in this kind of environment. It's all about working as a group. The collective works out really well. So when we're sharing a space, sharing the technology, sharing the staff, therefore we can actually have that business experience from the phone call right through to when the patient is leaving. It is a certain efficiency to that. When you're in a solo environment, the same things we're doing, you're doing that solo environment for one practitioner. When I have, let's say, 3 clinicians and 3 or 4 hygienists working simultaneously, it works out to be, all right, economically feasible to have a slightly modified fee or a lower fee than being in a boutique practice and still end up as a business owner, all right? Having profitability. So your profitability as a solo practitioner, if you're in the ideal standard, you want to have about a 60% gross margin on everything. In these kind of practices, of 18 to 20% is wholly acceptable. When you look at the gross number, all right, it's a very substantial number. And it's also a reproducible income because it's not based upon me doing work. It's based upon my brand doing reproducible work time and time again. So everyone is there working on that same team, trying to provide that same level of care and the same experience. Again, because of shared expenses. So that works well, so everybody can be compensated. And I'll get into other things with regard to cost savings and things like that in a larger operation. More people, more providers, bigger facility equals bigger discounts from all of the things that generally you're buying at rack rate. So that's the secret sauce of having a larger operation being financially workable. It's all about having realistic expectations. If I was to say I want to add 10% more to my bottom line, it's not going to happen without it seriously affecting something in the system. You got to be realistic to what you have and who you are and what's your role. What are you providing back, all right, to society, and what's your expectation for your work output.
Perfect. Carolina, same question for you. You have fast, cheap, and good. Would you say pick 3 as well?
No, expensive and good. I don't believe in our profession it is fair to try to be fast. You can be rapid working on a patient and some people might be able to work fast and well, and their productivity allowed them to be good. Rick is undoubtedly one of those. I've known him for years, but we don't all have the same hands. I was rapid working on patients. I was efficient. The moment I said, open your mouth, after 30 minutes talking to the patient, you see how much I love talking. So after 30 minutes talking to a patient, I would say, open your mouth. I would put a bite block and would not remove that bite block until I was done. So the patient could not close his or her mouth anymore. I mean, until I got done. And I was rapid working. Now, fast in our profession would mean that we are linked to other professionals. We are linked to lab technicians. And I don't believe in accelerating the turnaround of a lab. I know their job. I had my own lab for years. I know how difficult it is. I know how demanding it is. I don't believe in having a rapid turnaround, even at a time of digital milling. You know, if the scanning is done, if they scan the impressions and the scanning is done too fast, it is proven. And Christensen published something yesterday on dental economics saying how the margins of a zirconia crown are so much worse than the margins of a PFM, of porcelain fused to metal. So I would not try to have a fast turnaround. I don't think dentistry can be cheap. I don't think dentistry can be cheap. Of course, you have composites. You have, you know, the both ends of the spectrum in brands. Of course, you have cheap, and I'll use the word cheap, implants and expensive implants. But do you know what those companies are giving you behind? I worked in Tanzania for 5 years, where patients were flying from other countries and being expats in Tanzania, and they had brands of implants. I mean, I would have sworn they were screws from a hardware store. They did not look like implants when I took x-rays. I did not know what they had in their mouths, nor did they, so I could not restore them. So I don't believe in dentistry. Dentistry has minimum standards. Of course, Rick said that clinical standards are set by the profession. I have to disagree with that. The profession sets standards, clinical standards, but clinical standards can be high, can be low. Your standards are set by yourself. And I'm not saying it's fair that we pay composite more expensive than gold, because when you look at the weight of a syringe of composite, it's more expensive than gold. It's like, it's insane. I'm not saying that chain is fair. We are being the first ones that get hit by the fact that you know, supplies are highly expensive. But if you want to use good quality supplies, there is no way, in my opinion, dentistry can be cheap. I had to be what I consider cheaper in my country than what I wanted to be, because my country did not allow for the fees that I thought would have been fair for the work I was doing. So I had to also work the volume. I had to work extra hours. I was never a 25-hour-a-week dentist. And my daughter knows it. I raised the kid alone. You know, I was never a 25-hour-a-week dentist. This is why I decided to leave my profession when I read a book by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Workweek. When I read The 4-Hour Workweek, I said, WTF, what am I doing working between 40 and 50 hours a week? So, I mean, if I had been in the US, it would have been a different story, but the country where I was living did not allow me to charge the fee that I had to charge for the work I was doing, but I chose to work more. I never chose to do different work or buy different materials or change brands in composite, in implants, even needles. To me, needles were the most important thing, because that's the first thing that can hurt a patient. I would spend a fortune in the best bevel needle there was in the market. So no, I cannot believe that those three can coexist. If you're giving a high value for a low fee, that will work. My office got submerged with patients because I was giving at the beginning a very high value for a low fee. And I was at that point being trained by Carl Misch. And I said to Dr. Mish, I can't make ends meet. I'm working 50 hours a week. I'm doing amazing work. And I have 3 weeks of wait list. You know what Dr. Mish said to me? He said to me, Carolina, the wait list is only feeding your ego. The wait list is not feeding your child. So get rid of that wait list. Raise your prices. If you have the guts, when you go back on Monday, this was in Pittsburgh, when you go back on Monday, multiply your prices by 2 and let's see what happens. God bless him. I did it. Of course, the wait list went away. Of course, that filtered my patients. And of course, I started making ends meet. So my mentor helped me build the model that I built.
Thank you for that. So we have two different opinions here. We have one opinion from Dr. Rick that says that, the 3 can coexist, and then Carolina, you say that they cannot. So we're gonna go ahead and throw on a third poll here for all of us or you attending. So would you say that the 3 values, cheap, fast, and good, can coexist? And then do you believe that the majority of patients do not accept the dentistry they need because of money? So go ahead and take a couple of seconds to answer both of those questions here. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. Okay, so would you say that the 3 values, cheap, fast, and good, can coexist? We have 33% of people that say yes, 67% of people that say no. And then, do you believe that the majority of patients do not accept the dentistry they need because of money? 100% of participants have answered yes to that question. And before we move on here to our next question, we have a question in the chat here directed at Carolina, which says, when you saw that, when you raise your prices 25% and you saw that funnel and that wait list disappear, did it not scare you?
No, I didn't raise them 25%. I rose my prices 100%. I went from 28,000 pesetas at that point, and I remember the number exactly, which was the price of my crown, to 56,000. I multiplied the price by 2. I was not scared. Of course, I was living off the quotations I had given before, so that kept filling my office, but immediately people were rejecting quotations. Dr. Mish made me read a study, and I recommend it to everyone. You can still find it on the internet. I always have it printed with my papers, always on my desk, always, and it will always be there, which is the Kodak study. And the Kodak study explains how, by raising your fee and having less patients coming in, you will have, like I did, you will lose 25% of your patients, not 100%. You will lose 25% of your customers. But because your expenses are lowered, your overhead is lowered, and the increase in price is what it is, your profit will still continue to raise. And from that moment on, through my 30 years of career after, I never made 1 year less than the year before. Even when we had huge financial crisis in Spain, even when things weren't going well for the country, I always had at least a 10% increase in my numbers by the end of the year. So it reduces the overhead. Rick needs a certain number of employees. I did not need that number of employees. Of course, I was paying a very expensive rent, but I still managed to have a practice at the end that was making more than $1 million a year. And that's very good for a solo practitioner. I mean, I wasn't a solo practitioner. I had specialists, orthodontists, endodontists, and whatnot. But no, to answer the question, no, I was not afraid. I trusted Carmish more than I trusted myself. Definitely, he had proven he knew what he was doing. And trust is important also for us when we have a mentor.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, and keep them coming here in the chat. I'll be, answering or at least asking them so they can get answered here. But we'll go ahead and move on. So we asked the panelists or the attendees right now, the same question, and we would love to be able to hear what you, Carolina, and Rick have to say about this. So Rick, we'll go ahead and start off with you here. Do you believe that the majority of patients do not accept the dentistry they need because of money?
When a patient hears a treatment plan and you've educated them, you made them part of the decision, most will accept, I'll call it covered work. But now you need to determine, they have to work on figuring out how they're going to buy and pay for this. So we use different lending programs and we talk monthly costs, but there's still a large part of the population out there that has significant economic challenges. So everyone's not a millionaire. It always comes back to, trust. If the patient trusts you and the treatment is proper and they believe in you, and the team can do the work properly, that works out well. But bottom line, the patients that don't accept treatment, once you've had all the other things firing, that's all about money. And absolutely, patients not accepting treatment is either they don't trust you or they just can't afford it. And our patient population, you get, basically it's an issue of affording, because we do use our patients as, part of the process, where they're going and the educational process for them. So, but more people are economically challenged right now, especially with what we're going through globally. So I think we're going to see more and more of this resistance for advanced care, because patients don't have the free spendable dollars.
Thank you. And Carolina, what do you think about that question? So do the majority of patients not accept dentistry because of money?
I talk about that a lot in the first book that you mentioned before, in Show Me Your Teeth, and explain to patients how to deal with this. It is true that the way the patient thinks is, when I have the money, when I get the money, I will do this. And they're expecting a death in the family and inheritance, or they're expecting lotto, or they're expecting a raise. And I keep telling them, understand that that's not how it works in dentistry. Within 2 years, your treatment could become 40% more expensive, not because we raise the prices, but because it becomes so much more complicated to treat what you have. So if we're talking the implants, and right now you have bone and no money, in 2 years, you might have money and no bone. If you have no bone in 2 years, we need to do grafting. You're talking about $10,000 more. You're talking about 6 more months of treatment. So we have to make the patient understand that sometimes paying a bank loan, even at 10%, because it's a personal bank loan, paying a bank loan at 10% is much cheaper than waiting 3 years and having a 30 or 40% increase in the cost of your treatment because you waited. A tooth that requires a filling now will be a root canal, a post, and a crown in 3 years, if it can be saved. And that goes from $250 eventually in a high-end practice to $2,500 or more. So we have to educate patients at that level. They can get loans with their banks. If their relationship is not good with their banks, we have a good relationship with our bank. We always do, because we put money in the bank. So we can have our bank sit down with our bank, the dental office bank, and we can sit down with them and say, I want you to make it easy for my patients to get a loan through you. You will make money. What happens there, and it worked wonderfully for us. And we had, when I sold my practice, we had, I would say, more than 50% of middle to low class patients, because they wanted something different. They were fed up with having their mouths destroyed, their teeth destroyed. And we went to the bank and said, listen, the treatments we're doing are 2 years long. If you do a loan in 3 years or 4 years, somehow the patient, because they went to your bank, they link the loan to the treatment. They feel like they have to pay the bank more than with their own bank, because it's your bank. And I've never seen in the years that, seriously, I've never seen in the years that I've practiced and used my own bank to finance my patients, I have never seen an unpaid loan, never. So it does work. So it's not only about them and their banks. They don't know how to deal with a bank. We know how to deal with a bank, even if we don't have an MBA. So I do believe that the understanding and trust has to increase. The acceptance will increase immediately. And the key issue is the patient accepting the doctor and trusting that we will do everything in our power for them to be able to afford the treatment. I'm not making the treatment cheap. I'm making it affordable for them. And I made treatments at the end. I knew how to make treatments affordable, keeping the high quality and keeping the standard that I wanted to work with.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you both for your answers there. So it looks like, you know, money and trust are the two main factors in those decisions here. But we're going to move on to our second half. And, you know, in the second half, I would like to touch on two topics, which by themselves probably deserve a full live panel each, and maybe our curators can actually organize this soon. But I would like to give your opinion on two different topics. One, an activity that goes hand in hand with yours, dental labs. And the second topic will be touched is related to DSO, so a growing modality in the US that has a dental world very divided right now. So Rick, in about 3 minutes or so, would you be able to tell me what dental lab has to pair with each model of practice?
Well, I can tell you about our model. Obviously, there's a lot of mill dentistry. I want to go backwards for a second. The largest lab in the country is Glidewell, and they've actually stopped doing porcelain fused to metal. So I've got to read the Christian article. Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't see it today because I had no time to get to my journals, but they've moved away from it because of a multitude of other issues that happened with porcelain fused to metal. Everything in their lab, for the most part, is mill dentistry. They do some lathe work over cores, but you know, obviously for us, we're doing a lot of mill dentistry, and the labs have been able to adapt with their efficiencies. All right, an artisan MDT that has years of additional training, layering porcelain rather than surface staining, usually not working in production labs. For an office such as ours, we need production labs. All right, but the margins and the patient aesthetic demands, they're achieved, you know, within clinical standards. And again, I have to read the Christian article with regard to margins. We work with large labs because we can negotiate volume pricing with these clinically efficient labs. Our time is a critical component of the picture because we don't want to have remakes, we don't want to have extra visits, but theirs is also. So a big thing with the labs is communication with the lab techs has to be absolutely spot on. When there's a question regarding a particular piece of work, the lab and the treating doctor have to clearly communicate. All right, this makes everything work better. And I think that's a good lead-in because Crown ID is doing that or helping them do that, helping labs and doctors communicate. A lot of labs are already doing this, all right, using a non-digital solution. But communication, everything makes everything go much more smoothly. Without it, a great lab can be a disaster. And we've learned from experience that when our doctors communicate with the tech that's actually working on the case, the results are far superior.
Thank you for that, Rick. Carolina, what about you? What model of dental lab pairs well with your model of practice?
Well, I will not say that a boutique dental office requires a boutique dental lab because I've been there, I've tried it, and it didn't work. I would say that there is no correlation in the price that I charged and the price that I was charged by a dental lab. It took me 15 years of practice to find the dental lab of my dreams. I was in Madrid, they were in Amsterdam, and their quality was impeccable. They were the first one to adopt milling machines, whatever, in Europe. They're very, very advanced. They had nailed their productivity model. However they had done it, I don't know. One thing has to be said is that when I needed aesthetics, When I was doing a single central incisor or 2 anterior teeth, it could not be them. It could not be them. I mean, I needed the ceramist, and ceramists are expensive. Male dentistry will, I believe, will never be able to cover that aspect of prosthetics. A skilled ceramist is expensive. It requires time for it to be good. So it's expensive, it takes time, and it's good. But you don't necessarily have to pay 250, 350 bucks for a crown. I don't believe in 30 bucks for a crown either. I mean, I don't. I have yet to see the margins of a crown that's costing 30 bucks or 40 bucks. I have never purchased one, so I cannot judge, but belief is free, and I'm free to believe, and I don't believe in crowns costing 30 bucks. I respect too much also the lab technicians profession. Their profession is undergoing a huge transformation, much bigger than ours. It's been like a bulldozer. I don't know if you use that word in English. It's been like a tank walking into their labs, and having to do crowns for that price is like, what the hell? I mean, they're just working with machines, and their profession is gone. I think something will happen there. I don't think it's fair to them.
Thank you for that. And we have a question here in the chat. So Carolina, you did mention Crown ID earlier, and Rick just touched on it a little bit regarding being a communication tool. What does it really do that we don't right now have as dentists?
Well, I was at a congress, at the ADA Congress in San Francisco right before COVID kicked in, and there was this amazing lab technician showing on the screen the prescriptions he was getting from his customers, and it was like, what the hell? They were basically writing in the back of a white paper napkin in the restaurant. That's how they were doing their prescription. Everything missing, unreadable writing. So this is basically, at the beginning, it's a digital prescription. The moment the information is entered by the chair side on the iPad, immediately the lab knows the work is coming their way. The lab can see a photograph of the impression. They can say, hey guys, have you seen you have a bubble? The assistant will not forget to click on bite registration. They will not forget to take the color. It's not even a 3 minute. It takes less to do that than half a form on paper with a pen and paper. So the prescription is digital, instantaneously sent to the lab with a pickup notice to the lab, so no delays. And then all the communication back and forth from the office and the lab happens digitally through web interface. Any delays, any change in dates, email notifications, just like so many tasks, SaaS you have nowadays on the internet. Well, this is one more of those. You get notification emails when there's a change so that you don't miss it. If there's a change in shifts, everything will still be on the screen. So there's no, oh, I forgot to tell the other front desk person, oh, sorry, my boyfriend called me. And no, that doesn't happen anymore because everything is traceable. It's a communication tool. Period. It's the best communication tool out there. There's nothing that does that. They've tried. Even Henry Schein has tried with their software for dental office and lab technician, but they forgot or they didn't think of having the chair side unit that the assistant is using while the patient is there. That's the key component.
Thank you for that explanation, and thank you for that question. We're going to move on here. We have 2 more questions left, and then we will be done for tonight. But this first question is going to be geared at you, Rick. So what do you think about DSOs? Is your model, Rick, similar to what DSOs do? And if not, how is it any different?
The delivery system for dental care is absolutely changing. DSOs really are not the focus. The practice of dentistry has been evolving. The cost to provide dental care has been increasing, and need to consolidate physical plant into more efficient delivery systems is the real conversation. Multi-specialty practices are not new. So it's really about business systems and the ability to build more efficient care. DSOs, if you need really solid business knowledge, all right, systems and money, they're able to accelerate this trend that we've already seen in medical. So basically they're mimicking a lot of the people there it came out of medical for the roll-up. We've all seen independent professional offices in the medical arena that are no longer independent, they're all part of a larger group. So we're familiar with that model and they know how it works because again, by consolidating and enhancing the work environment, they end up in a spot, they can be more productive. So there are many, many excellent practitioners that already moved into that model that are already working with DSOs. So DSOs are not for bad dentists. As a matter of fact, the majority of them are really fine practitioners. They're excellent doctors. Only now they've taken a small step towards, they monetize their practice and they continue in the path of practitioner in a facility that's more modernized, with better equipment, better staffing, and all the other things that the back end provides. Corporate models have this, also a value quality of care. They value it at a very high level. So, with that being said, when you look at the ABA health policy, all right, I mean, I'm going to quote a little bit of Dental Economics magazine, also some of my favorite magazines. In 2005, a little over 84% of the dentists owning private practices and 63% work for themselves. Roll it forward to 2019, the number drops to 76%, with only 50% of the practicing dentists working for themselves. These numbers are accelerating, all right? And I know that during the pandemic and post-pandemic, I have seen a lot of movement of professional practices that couldn't really deal with all of the stress we had, PPE, the new regulatory issues, the unknowing, all of the other structural situation that came into place with COVID, they just couldn't handle it. So a lot of practices either failed or sold to the DSOs. I know in my area alone, I heard a number the other day, it was astounding that almost 100 practices in my region rolled into DSOs, big roll-ups. So pandemics accelerate economic trends, no question about it. We're seeing it now, but the model of dentistry, whether it's the solo practitioner, all right, or the small group or the larger group, all right, your model's not disappearing, but it's surely been impacted by these changes. The financial efficiency of larger shared work environments, a business plan with SOPs, and the buying power, sheer buying power, all right, the redistribution of all the back office work and the well-focused business professionals that they have is the reason why we all have to be on our A game. All right, there's little doubt that DSOs are growing, but I really have a very limited view of DSO model. My understanding is, what they're handling all the back end stuff, all this stuff we don't want to do, all the letters and all of the employment law and the benefits and the payroll and all the other multi-letter, letter nuisances that we have to all deal with. They're doing that, and they're leaving the practitioner to do what we know how to do, and they're leaving them with clinical control. So I don't think it's necessarily bad. I believe it's here to stay. It's just so similar to what the medical model has already proven to be successful. All right, they because of their economics, all right, because of the fact they have something we don't have. They have structure, they have business plans, all right, and they have the professionals that are educated and have the experience executing on those plans. I can't say I have that, and I spend my entire existence in handling the business dentistry for my solo practice. I do believe they have better systems in place and better people to execute. With that, we have some things that they might not have yet. All right, I don't believe we're ever going to go away, but I do believe they're here to stay. All right, we have very, very strong relation to our community and years of providing care to our patients. Our patients generally stay in our dental practice until either they're moving out of an area or we've disappointed them. So if we can look at why a patient gets disappointed, all right, and that comes back to communication expectations. I think that we're on equal footing with large corporate DSOs. Now you have to understand there's a DSO and there are IDSOs. There are a lot of practices that are still under the same name that we know them under, but they're actually owned by a corporate entity. The doctor is taking a chance at that point to monetize their physical practice and still work in dentistry and still get very well compensated for the work they're doing. So I don't really see a major issue with DSOs. I know they do a lot of things better than I can do just because of the sheer bulk of people that are available to do these things. So I think that's a similarity from my small group practice to a corporate setting that has people that can really walk the walk and talk the talk, and they have the professional training to be able to pull off certain things that we're going to have to reach out to other people outside of our practice. So, you know, that's my read on you know, where we are in this marketplace. I think we're all going to be okay. I think that they're here to stay. And I think it's something that we have to get used to, the fact that a DSO is not a DSO is not a DSO. There are still some very, very fine practitioners working in that model. So we can't go under the idea of bigger bad dentistry, bigger cutting corners. They're not, it's not necessarily consistent. So I think that's a challenge. That's something we all have to be cautious of, to take that approach.
Thank you for that. And, you know, Carolina, I know you practiced in Europe, you practiced primarily in Madrid, Spain. Is there a model like that there? And what is your opinion on it?
It's not exactly the same model, the one that exists in Spain. The model that exists there is a franchise model. It is based also on the fact that dentists don't want to be dealing with marketing issues and with a lot of logistical issues, but it doesn't handle, I mean, that's destroying. The model that exists in Spain has destroyed the dental world in Spain, the dental profession. Many young people coming out of uni that wanted to become real dentists for the real belief of treating people well, moved out of Spain, went to France, went to Germany, went to other countries to practice because it's become impossible in Spain. That being said, well, and in France, the same thing is beginning to happen now. There are models of big insurance companies taking over. That being said, when I first read about the model of DSOs in the US years ago, when this whole thing started, I thought it was a good thing, because I thought, you know, my nightmare in my practice and in my journey was having to deal with all the business side of it. I was not a business person. Maybe I'm more now than I was before. And I did not know how to deal with this. And I spent hours, you know, I would finish with patients at 6 p.m. and stay in my office until 10 p.m. doing paperwork and trying to find ways to do the marketing and the productivity and making those numbers go up and lowering my overhead. And I didn't know how to do that. So my take on it is that what we need to do, if we don't want this to become a definite solution, and not necessarily a good solution, because like Rick said, some DSOs are good, but not all DSOs are good. So if you don't want the profession to be taken over by this type of system, it means we doctors need the training. When you're spending $500,000 in university and then $500,000 minimum in building a practice, so this whole thing is costing you $1 million, you have to be a business person to be able to get an ROI and be able to see how you build it so that ASAP you start making money and not, you know, become flooded with debt. So my take would be get an MBA before you become a dentist. Maybe schools should ask for an MBA before they allow you to get a dental diploma, or you should not be allowed to open a dental office if you don't have both MBA and dental diploma. Maybe something like that has to happen, not just 2 classes of economics like I had in university, 2 classes of economics and some boring classes on statistics. It's like, what the hell? I knew nothing when I came out. The little I knew was taught to me, the little I know on dentistry or what I know was taught to me by experience, by my mentors, and by my American friends, because my European friends have no idea of business in the dental. So there is a reason why DSOs exist, and the reason is real, the reason is there. The business side of our profession is a nightmare for those of us who don't have a business mind.
Well, thank you so much to the both of you. So to close this first Dental Insights live panel discussion, I have one last question for each of you, and it's the same question. In a few sentences, would you be able to tell us what you did wrong? And the reason why I asked this is that, you know, hopefully we all learn from our mistakes, and we can teach people and hopefully give words of advice to not make the same mistakes that we did. So we want people to take that home with them. So Carolina, what did you do wrong?
Well, there's a sentence that we love in the spiritual world, and I have to close with this, is that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So it's about changing the way you look at things. I have changed. I would definitely want to help more people, but I could not lower my standards, my clinical standards, because that's how I was raised as a professional by the first mentor I had, Marc Bola. I do have to mention him. And he made my professional standards be up there. Sometimes I hate him because of that, but I owe it to him. And then, of course, Carl Misch and Jacques Bory and you name them. So yes, I would by all means try to make treatments more affordable, meaning accessible to more people. But I also would focus a lot on lowering patients' expectations. Patients that want teeth and that want implants, they come in and they want ceramic and they want this and they want that, and an overdenture will give them such a more long-lasting result, such a more beautiful aesthetic. And we have to educate patients at that level there. Consumer expectations are what they are, but we are the professionals and we have to learn to lower consumer expectations. And that will allow us to give them long-lasting treatments, good quality treatments. And then you set aside a nonprofit in Africa to cope with the guilt side if you're in a high-end, you know. And one mistake that I made, if there's one mistake that I made that I would try to advise not to make it, is I promoted myself because of fear of having competition. You have to promote a brand, not a person, because otherwise when the person is not there, no money comes in. And that's what happened to me. I was never able to take a 1-month vacation while I was a dentist because I had promoted myself, not the brand.
Thank you for that very honest answer. Rick, same question for you. You know, what do you consider you did wrong?
I think the biggest mistake I made in my life, all right, was the fact that I had to have an early departure from patient care. I loved doing surgery. I was trained by Carl also. That was what, you know, floated my boat. Every day I would go in, I loved the thrill of it. The problem is that I had to leave dental care early because of ergonomic injury. All right, it was totally unnecessary what happened to me. So I really should have taken better care of my body. You know, body, mind, but you know, your body, you got to follow ergonomic principles when you're working because we're at the chair. It's a very, very demanding, super demanding profession. And I really do believe that should be a focus. If we're too wrapped up on day-to-day treatment and not paying attention to what's important for ourselves, for our own health, will eventually break. So take care of yourself, enjoy the journey, and don't try to rush it.
Thank you all very, very honest answers. I love them. And I feel like those two answers are to take through life with whatever you do. So I personally appreciate that since I am not in dentistry. We have one last poll for all of those that attended tonight. Which model would you now choose after hearing both of our panelists? High volume average fee or lower volume high fee? And let's take a look at the answers here that we've gotten.
Or not.
Or not. There we go. So it looks like the tables have turned after this panel. 75% of you have said that you would choose the high volume average fee, and 25% of you have said lower volume high fee. So extremely interesting to see how exactly the tables have turned. And again, we wanted to thank you all for being here. We will definitely have more live panel discussions, but thank you so much, Carolina. Thank you so much, Rick, for being with us tonight. And thank you all for taking the time out of your evening to be with us here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
To all. Thank you.